The WWE and the WWE Network has released one of the greatest documentary starts I've ever seen in terms of any documentary, to be honest. And it's an honor that it's going to be The Undertaker and it's going to be The Last Ride, man. I'm very excited, and let's get right into the first review, man. What's up, everybody? It's the Sports Code, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. This is going to be The Undertaker's The Last Ride, Chapter 1 review, 1 of 5. And, there's been a lot of documentaries, and even Corey Graves mentioned Michael Jordan as being the GOAT of the NBA, and Undertaker being the Michael Jordan of the WWE, which is blatant and obviously the truth. Of course, The Undertaker is the greatest WWE performer I've ever seen of all time, and it's an honor that he gets a documentary behind him because, man, if anybody deserves it, man, it's The Undertaker. So before we get started on the actual documentary itself, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Sports Code. Turn notifications on. Help share this video, share the playlist when eventually the next episode comes out, and we can continue on through this great journey of the backstage, the scenes behind every match, and behind what he was going through at the time, because it's really interesting stuff, man. And it's a lot of stuff to the point where I didn't even know the Undertaker, who he really was behind the mask, behind the hat, behind the persona, and the things that he truly had to go through to be that person inside that ring. Very interesting. And also, this might be a separate video on its own, but I'm going to say it now because obviously it happened on Raw tonight. Congratulations to Becky Lynch on being pregnant. That's incredible thing to happen, man. It's a milestone for pretty much most women when they're in a relationship, man. And I'm glad it's happened to you. You clearly really wanted this. Your emotions, man, it speaks louder than words. And good luck with that. And I hope Seth Rollins and you are very happy. And without further ado, man, let's jump into this documentary first hand. So, again, this was the period before WrestleMania, where he versed Roman Reigns. That was it was in 2017. That was basically the first time that the Undertaker actually allowed cameras to follow him around and document his every move, pretty much. And the introduction to this documentary was phenomenal. This was one of the best introductions I've ever seen, and WWE, they always do this so well, man. The introductory, the hype to get into the documentary, man, it is the best I've seen. And huge shout out to WWE, and I recommend you watch this episode as well, by the way. Go watch it for yourself if you have the opportunity. But yeah, what an amazing introduction. And yeah, look, it basically goes on from the introduction to Undertaker pretty much hopping out of a plane, talking about how he's not 100% going into this match. He felt the worst he could possibly feel in this time because of obviously not taking those bumps every year. Obviously the amount of surgeries he had to go through every single year from that 5-year period between from Shawn Michaels to the Roman Reigns match. Pretty much every year between then, he's had at least one surgery to get something fixed or to stop something from bothering him as much. And it took a very big toll on him. So he clearly wasn't feeling 100% for this match. And at the end of the day, it basically went on to describe how he survived, how he went through this, the type of man that he is, the mentality that he is. And you had some of the greatest wrestlers of all time talking about how amazing The Undertaker was and the mentality that he had during this time. You had the likes of Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Triple H, Vince McMahon. Technically not a great wrestler, Vince McMahon, but he's the big boss himself. Stone Cold. You had all these wrestlers, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, all these wrestlers willing to talk about how great The Undertaker was, the mentality that he had, the leadership that he had. But again, moving on to some of the big news of WrestleMania and how Undertaker thought of WrestleMania. So Undertaker thought of WrestleMania as the big stage, the finale, He even said the creme de la creme. That is what the Undertaker saw out of this out of WrestleMania every year. He always got nervous for it. He always felt like he was always thinking, am I ready for this? Can I perform to the best of what I wanted to do? Can I be that superstar every single year? And of course, not being a full-time wrestler, it became harder and harder for him to actually go out there and perform at the best level that he could. And obviously, being that at that time, being the age that he was, being at the level that he was, he knew he couldn't do this full time. So just doing that show once a year, or having 3 matches a year, from 2 matches a year to 1 match a year, it took a big toll on him. And apparently it's the hardest thing he had to do, which was backed up by Triple H when he was going through the same thing pretty much at the same time. How hard it was to go through that, because they basically said it in a way where if you are taking a bump every single night, it's almost like you're immune to the pain compared to doing it once a year, because that pain comes back, and that pain works its way through more and more and more every single time that you don't do it, and it ends up becoming very, very painful to do at the end of the day. So yeah, from then on, they talk about how the streak, they're talking about why the Undertaker, how he basically came to WrestleMania every year to defend the streak. And some of the greats from Shawn Michaels and Triple H, Brock Lesnar, they even talked about Mark Henry a bit. Yeah, there was Batista and Edge. There were so many opponents that were actually here to do an interview to talk about how the streak was something that it made you the top guy if you were to be able to verse him. If Batista said, if you earned the Undertaker's respect by him giving you a match at WrestleMania, it's like you've made it. Edge saying, he trusted me with his baby, his streak, his main thing that made the WrestleMania what it was the Undertaker and the streak. And having that trust meant that not only did he trust you, but he also rates you highly enough to have a match like that, have a strong performance with him. And that was one of the biggest honors you could ever have. Then things took a little bit of a turn, man. It turned to WrestleMania 30 between Brock Lesnar and the pain that he went through in that match. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, during that match he got concussed, and no one knows at the time during that match. No one knows when he got concussed. People have their theories, but even the Undertaker himself doesn't know, because he doesn't remember anything about the match. And looking at this and thinking about it realistically, not knowing something that happened to you, one of the more iconic moments in your wrestling career, definitely one of the most legendary, because that's the streak defeated. How could he not remember that match? Is something that I can't believe. Or it's so scary to think about. It's something that important. So one of the not really the greatest, but one of the more iconic things that ever happened to me, and I would forget about it, not even remember it. It's a very tough feeling to swallow, and I feel bad that he didn't remember. But that match took a lot out of him, and he ended up passing out, or I guess the concussion made him lose his memory, and yeah, all of that, and it was just. It was sad, and he ended up getting taken to the hospital with Vince and Brock Lesnar following suit to ensure that he was okay. And yeah, again, he didn't. Michelle McCool, who's Undertaker's wife, said that he didn't remember his own name until 4 a.m. that night or that morning, which was. I couldn't believe that, and I know that it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad to the point where he couldn't remember anything. He couldn't remember anything about the show, the match itself. The last memory was at 3:30 in the afternoon. I mean, come on. I couldn't. That's so scary to think about. So, and again, this didn't stop the Undertaker from performing, man. He still came back to the next WrestleMania. He still wanted to be the dead man. He still believed he had what it took to go through the matches, but at the end of the day, the confidence wasn't there, and that was the big thing. Undertaker even admitted to himself, he lost confidence in himself. He lost confidence in his ability to perform. He got a little bit scared, to which, of course, when you're in that situation, you have people all around you to help, and Triple H was the one this time to help, and it did. He sat down with the Undertaker, really gave him like a good pep talk. Remember who you are. Remember why these people come and love you so much, and all of this. And it helped for that match against Bray Wyatt. And even Bray Wyatt said he didn't know all these things. Like, it's the Undertaker. He doesn't lose confidence. It's the Undertaker, man. It's a dead man. He can do everything fearlessly. And that's the persona that you live up to for so many years. Then sometimes it does take its toll. And sometimes, at the end of the day, he's human. So, yeah, all these nerves and abilities, these concerns, they come to fruition. They come and they can rattle your mind. They can make you believe something, even if it's not true. They can make you believe something that you don't want or you refuse to believe that exists, which is, of course, in this case, fear. And through that, he overcame, and step by step, he ended up becoming a better version of The Undertaker, a better version of himself. He beat Bray Wyatt in a decent match. When I watch that match, I think of it as decent. I don't think of it as extraordinary, like of course the Shawn Michaels matches, which Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker for me is the greatest match of all time. That's the pinnacle of what a wrestling match should be. And if you can excel above that, you're considered one of the greatest of all time in my eyes, because it's so for me, it's unmatched. There was so many elements that went into it. The personal rivalry, the mentality of the two superstars. Yeah, they both weren't in their prime, but both of them together, there was magic. It was magic. And I watched that match as a kid, and almost every year I have to watch that match because it's magic, man. It's magic. It's 1 hour or 50 minutes of pure gold. From start to finish, it was the greatest match. And yeah, of course, it wasn't necessarily like that with Bray Wyatt, but it was a good match, and it was definitely better than the Brock Lesnar match because he was able to remember it. He's healthy at the end, and he enjoyed his performance. And yeah, then it started to talk about him as a leader, and me doing leadership type theories within universities and stuff. This meant a lot to me personally, because being a leader is so important to a business that if you're able to show leadership qualities, you could basically help make or break a business. Because at the end of the day, you need people to look up to you. You need to earn people's respect. You need to be that loyal guy, that guy that follows the company brand, that company status for so long, that people start to look up to you, and you're the person that people come to when they're having their concerns. They're coming to you when they need help, or they feel like they've been hard done by, or they feel like they're not getting the TV time, or they don't know what they're doing, or there's something that they feel like they're doing wrong. They go to The Undertaker. They go to these leaders to come and help them, to help guide them, put them in the right direction. And being a locker room leader is a huge honor. And all of the people that have technically been considered a locker room leader will all tell you that it is one of the highest honors to have all these people look up to you and feel like you're the pinnacle of WWE, you're the pinnacle of this company, and when you're here, you're the leader, you're automatically the leader, and no one else can take that away from you. And Undertaker said about being a leader that it wasn't something he was aspiring to be, but he felt like it was a necessity for the business to survive, to have a leadership figure around the company. And him being probably the best wrestler at the time, being the one that's stayed for the longest. You had obviously the likes of Stone Cold retiring. You also had the likes of The Rock going away. Undertaker was the main guy there that stayed there, because the likes of Triple H, as good as he wasn't there long enough to be the leader. Shawn Michaels wasn't there. He took a few months off, so he technically wasn't a leader like The Undertaker. All these great superstars, but Undertaker was the guy that stayed there for the longest, the most consistent time, and that's why he was considered the leader. And he took great pride in being the leader. And yeah, so it moves on to the Hall of Fame, the night before WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame ceremony, and it shows a different side of The Undertaker. It shows how he was outside of the ring. It showed him as a very confident guy, a guy that trusts in himself, a guy that's able to socialize with other people, which is something that I didn't really see, because at the end of the day, being a kid, all you see is what you see on TV. You don't know the business as much as I would know now. And yeah, he's a completely different guy from outside the ring to inside, and it's pretty impressive to see, and to know that he worked his entire life to become the Undertaker inside the ring, but outside he's not that guy. He's different. He's completely different. It's inspiring to see how hard he worked, truly, because but there's always going to be an element of yourself in everything that you do. That's what I believe. So there is elements of the Undertaker outside of the ring being inside the ring as well, but so much of it is a character, and so much of it he worked extremely hard on from years and years and years, even till this day, that that people either don't notice or don't consider, or it's there and people just see it as what it is. So for the Undertaker to be that person backstage that's talking with Roman Reigns, having conversations with everybody backstage, talking about how he's the older guy, he's the guy he always feels like crap, he always feels like shit, but he's still coming because he knows that he can't let the people down. He's here to earn his keep, just like everybody else. It's inspiring. So yeah, and obviously talking to Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns coming onto this interview and saying it's an honor to verse the Undertaker, and he's just trying to live up to that standard of the Undertaker. He's trying to do him right, do him proud, and yeah. And something else that you have to notice as well, it's something that I noticed. I'm sure most people notice because it's put there on purpose. Like WWE, they don't just put something like that, like this, in the whole episode without us noticing. The Undertaker was clearly not 100%, and he said that. But every single time I saw the Undertaker move, he was limping. He was moving poorly. He had a bad hip, and he had hip replacement surgery, I believe, afterwards, or something. I believe something of that sorts. But you could tell, man, the guy was not 100%, and he still made no excuses. He put his boots on. He put the jacket and the hat. He went out there and he performed. And he talks about the pressure of having a good match, but without making excuses. And the pressure is immense for him because at the end of the day, he even admitted it himself. He doesn't like when people compare him to 15 years ago to what he is now, because that just means that people don't rate him the way that he is now. And the pressure of trying to live up to what he was back then, it's very difficult to do, and it's almost impossible to do, really, for many, many people, including The Undertaker to an extent, because you have to admit, his previous matches with the Roman Reigns and the Bray Wyatts, yeah, they don't live up to the standards of the Shawn Michaels matches and all of the matches where he was in his prime. But no one expects that from him, because at the end of the day, it's ring rust. And yeah, he wants to be on that level, and there's no shame in doing that, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be that one match befitting of Undertaker leaving the WWE, and he said that himself. He's waiting for that one match to leave the WWE, and know that people think, "Wow, what a match! What a way to go out!" And he thought Roman Reigns would be that match, and of course, the match itself. If you guys are gonna watch episode 2, you know that there's probably gonna be a situation where Undertaker isn't happy with his performance. It mentioned it at the end of the episode in this episode, and it's gonna be the mainstay for probably the next episode as well. Undertaker did not like that WrestleMania match, and to be honest, being very critical of yourself is just as good as other people critiquing you. Because yeah, when I watched that match, I didn't think it was that great either, and for me it was borderline average, and it was considered the main event, really. So yeah, it wasn't a great match, and I'm glad that he was able to see that himself, because being as critical on yourself is sometimes very hard to do. Not a lot of people can do it. Not a lot of people will defend themselves and say, "Oh, because this happened, I can't do this," and all of that. The Undertaker saw his performance and he didn't like the performance. But overall, after the match, he thought he was done, man. He put the hat, the jacket in the ring, one of the most iconic moments. And even watching that episode and seeing that happen again, it was a little bit of an emotion there, man. It was an emotional time. Even though I know he comes back, that time it was emotional. It always will be. So yeah, the match ended. Undertaker, the highlights, they showed highlights of the Undertaker Roman Reigns match. They made it look incredibly good. The highlights that did happen with the spear through the table, the choke slam, obviously the chair shots, and obviously Undertaker losing. And he went backstage. Everybody gave him a round of applause. People were saying that it was a hell of a run. Triple H hugged him as the first person he saw. And yeah, man, he was able to ride off into the sunset, and that was how the episode ended. And yeah, that's the first episode, man. I'm sorry for rambling for 20 odd minutes, but again, I want to do this justice. I want to bring out everything that happened, and I want to talk about what I think, because this man is a legend, and for many people, he's the best of all time, and he's one of the first people I had the pleasure of seeing. And at the end of the day, I want to do this. I want to do this right. I want this to justify being the Undertaker. So this review for me is very special, just as much as the Michael Jordan documentary, just as much as any documentary sports related that I'll do in the future. This one means a lot to me because he is the greatest, and I want to make sure it is done right. So if it's long, I apologize, but that's what it is, man. I'm trying to get everything out there, everything that happened. I want to try and speak on everything. So hopefully you enjoyed that, man, and that's going to be the end of this episode, part 1. It's going to be a special time from here on in. I'm not really sure when episode 2 is going to come out, but when it does, you'll hear from me again. So I want to thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe for more WWE content. Obviously yesterday was Money in the Bank, and that review came out yesterday, and today's the last ride. Whatever comes next, I'll be sure to comment on it. Anyway, have a wonderful and safe day. Take care and peace.